Well, boys and girls of all ages, it's topwater time. Here's one. There we go. Got him that time. Once the springtime has fully sprung where you live in the country, you can and should be throwing a topwater lure of some variety every single morning that you go bass fishing. And if I am fishing shallow and I'm not throwing a topwater frog, which I do a lot of the time, I'm picking one of these two lures, the Plopper Style bait or the Buzzbait. These two topwater lures may have the same goal in mind, but they do it in almost completely unique ways. Today I'm going to share with you guys what's so different about these two topwaters and when each one should be your pick for bass fishing. My name's Tyler, and let's talk about it. Another giant, another giant. Look at that, y'all. I can't believe what I just caught. Yes! I love that noise. How's it going, folks, and welcome back to TRF. My goal here on this channel is to help you guys become better bass anglers. No matter if you're a bass boat, kayak, or bank beater, my channel is here for you. So hit that subscribe button because you belong here. Now make sure y'all don't go anywhere. We have some amazing fish catching action that complements the teaching in this video in the second half. If y'all would like to skip around the video, make sure you check out the timestamps that are always listed at the bottom of my instructional videos. They will help you navigate the parts of my videos. So what is the purpose of these two lures right here? Well, they are topwater lures, so of course you want a fish to come from underneath the top of the water and hit the top and engulf your lure. That's the main purpose, to catch fish. But the purpose is also to cover water and create a loud, explosive reaction. I'm not saying you can't catch actively feeding bass by using these two lures, let's say schooling fish or just fish that are hungry, but most of the time, and I don't really have any science to back this, I'm gonna say these two lures are mainly intended to create a reaction strike, to get a fish that's just chilling down there in its home, sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden a loud water spraying, vibration, whiny looking thing starts buzzing across its head. It has no choice but to instinctually eat your lure. So that is the purpose of these two topwater lures. And honestly, selecting lures in bass fishing is just like playing Tetris. You've got to accept the conditions as they come at you. The water level, the water clarity, the wind, the cold, the hot, all those things are coming at you, and you've got to make the right decisions. You've got to turn those pieces just right so they fit in there and you can have success, which in Tetris is... What is Tetris? I'm realizing that at 25, I'm dating myself right now. And whatever the goal of Tetris is, bass fishing is no different. You've got to analyze the conditions that are coming at you, select the right lures to find success. And you may think these two lures would fit the same as they're falling at you like in Tetris, but trust me, they wouldn't. Let's first talk about how they're similar. The first similarity is that they have to be retrieved fast in order for the baits to work as they were intended. So you can't slow crawl these things, whether a bait caster or a spinning reel, and expect them to have any kind of noise or action. They need to be pulled across the surface of the water in order to create a vibration to throw water and thus make the noises, the buzz or the plop, as they are intended. And so due to the fact that they have to be retrieved fast, you can cover, and matter of fact, you kind of have to cover a ton of water when using these lures. Now, what covering water means, if you're new to bass fishing, is just making a ton of casts over a large surface area, whether you are walking quickly around the banks of your pond or you're on the trolling motor or paddling your kayak on high, going down the bank. That's what covering water means. The term covering water in bass fishing cannot happen slow. It is a fast moving technique. Now, of course, you can use either one of these for target casting situations, whether you're casting to a lay down log or a grass line or throwing it in and around dock pilings. But for the most part, that is more of a popper or a frog's territory. I tend to throw these more in relatively open water situations, maybe some structure in grass and wood mixed around. And also, if you have a little bit of ripple from the wind on the water, we're going to talk about wind later on in this video, these two really excel. But for the most part for me, target casting is going to be a frog and a popper. Open water, covering water is going to be these two. Now, while they do share one common goal, one main similarity, there's quite a few differences. Some that are obvious and some that are not so obvious, and I'm going to tell you guys all about them. Make sure y'all check out those timestamps listed below if you want to skip between the different sections here coming up, because it's going to be rapid fire. The first obvious difference is that one has treble hooks and one does not. The Buzzbait not having treble hooks is relatively weedless, especially with the hook and trailer hook, if you so desire, facing towards the sky. If you were to pull your Buzzbait over basically any cover, grass, lily pads, wood, really anything shallow, a Buzzbait comes over that very well because it's relatively weedless. Most Buzzbaits do not have a weed guard over the hook, but you really don't need it because you're retrieving it so fast that unless the Buzzbait turns sideways, that is the only time that a Buzzbait can really stick itself into shallow cover. And on the flip side, the one that is basically like anti-weedless, is going to be the Patroller, the Plopper Style lure. With this thing having big old treble hooks, these are triple grip trebles, they collect everything. I'm talking about little blades of grass, and especially hydrilla and milfoil, lily pads, wood for sure. The Plopper Style is not a weedless lure, and so if you are trying to throw it around cover, unless that cover is multiple inches at least under the water, I would not recommend it. The second obvious difference between these two is that one is a wired bait, similar to a spinnerbait, and the other one is a hard plastic, similar to a crankbait. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I can't really think of any disadvantages of the Plopper Style, this Patroller here, being a hard plastic bait. It casts really well, it hooks up to fish pretty well, but I can think of one disadvantage of the Buzzbait being a wired bait, and especially the size wired bait this is. If you add a trailer hook on there, if you decide to throw a Buzzbait without a trailer, this thing does not have good casting distance. If you are a newer bait caster user or just don't have a whole lot of casting strength yet, a Buzzbait might be a hard one to use to its fullest potential because, like I said, you want to be making extra long casts with this thing to cover as much water as quickly as you can to elicit that strike. And so if you can't cast it very far, you might as well just throw a different lure. But with this one being a hard plastic bait and this one being a wire bait, that leads us to the obvious difference number 3, and that is that this one floats and this one sinks. That means that the way that you start your retrieve with both of these lures is very different. With the Plopper Style, you can cast it out there and you can just let it sit there because guess what? It's not gonna sink. You can start your retrieve as slowly as you want to. You can start your retrieve as fast as you want to. You ain't even gotta start your retrieve at all for 20 seconds. The Buzzbait, on the other hand, as soon as it hits the water, it starts to sink. And so you've gotta begin your retrieve the second it hits the water or as soon as you possibly can. Sometimes I'm even beginning my retrieve on the Buzzbait before it hits the water. I'm engaging my reel a split second before that Buzzbait has hit the water, especially on a lower angled kind of roll cast where you keep the Buzzbait no more than like 3 feet, 5 feet off the water. You can slow the bait down with your thumb, and then as soon as it hits the water, my hands have already switched with the reel in my hand and I'm starting my retrieve because trust me, I see this all the time by guys fishing on the bank, is they cast their Buzzbait out there, they watch it, it hits the water and they're like, oh, I might as well begin now. They start their retrieve and it takes them like 10 cranks to get this thing up on the top of the water where it should be because it's sunk down in the column. And so again, if you are not very comfortable with using a bait caster or even a spinning rod, switching your hands mid-cast, stopping that lure at a certain time period and beginning your retrieve right away, you're gonna lose potential fish because your bait is not in the strike zone for as long as it could be. And trust me, you do not wanna be retrieving your Buzzbait under the water. It doesn't look like a spinnerbait. It looks like if a spinnerbait was a wet raccoon. It looks horrible. Now here are 3 not so obvious differences. The first being the sound. If you're to look at both of these lures in the store before you've ever thrown them on the lake, you might not know what the different sound they make is. And I say not so obvious because most anglers haven't thrown both of these side by side on the same day, and so you might not be able to remember what they sound like. But a Buzzbait makes a very high-pitched, whiny, metallic sound and throws a ton of water. It sounds like this. Or in the water, the Plopper Style bait makes a completely different noise. It makes, well, a plop, kind of like plop, 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 which in the air sounds like this, but in the water. But which one of these 2 lures has a sound that is most preferred by bass? Both of them. They're both great. Most Buzzbaits as a whole are more louder than most Plopper Style lures, especially at high speeds. And so if you're dealing with dirtier water, if you're dealing with windy conditions with some ripple, even some rolling waves on the water, and you still want to throw topwater, the Buzzbait's the one for you, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Now the second not so obvious difference is that they have a different presence in the water, and that makes a huge difference. As you can tell by these 2 baits right here, by looking at the size of these 2 lures, you can literally see that the Plopper body is the same size as just the back end of the Buzzbait, not including the top portion. And so when you're swimming these 2 across the top of the water, the Buzzbait is going to push not only a lot more water because of its bigger sized blade, it's also going to push more water in a V shape as well as deeper because a Buzzbait sits deeper in the water than a lure like the Patroller does. The Patroller sits in the water kind of like this. If this is the water level here, only the tiniest back end is in the water. A Buzzbait, the only thing keeping it on the top of the surface is this blade. And so you have this entire bottom section here that is underneath the water. The presence of this lure, the size of it, just pushes more water, and especially in dirty, shallow water, will attract more fish to come bite this thing and help them find it, which is very key in dirty water, much better than the patroller will. Now, the third not so obvious difference is gonna be the price point. Most buzzbaits are relatively cheap. I think this buzzbait is maybe $7, could be wrong. As always, I have my tackle linked in the video description for y'all to check out. So this one, about $7, I think. The patroller here is, I think, $14.99. And you might think, Tyler, that's awful steep for a lure. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. These lures right here don't fall apart. The components that makes up a Plopper Style lure, basically on all the brands out there, the reason why they're so expensive is because they are high quality lures. I have never once, in all 3 brands of ploppers I've tried, the River to Sea, the Berkeley Chapo, and the Mock Baits Patroller, I've never had any of them fall apart. As a matter of fact, the only maintenance I've ever had to do on these things is just switch out the treble hooks if they get too, blunt, or if they get rusty. But the buzzbait, on the other hand, will fall apart over time. Whether the skirt gets torn by natural use, by a whole bunch of big bass, which in that case, you've got a bunch of success, you can go buy yourself another buzzbait. I've had buzzbaits break before after enough usage. Baits like the Patroller, the Plopper Styles, I just have never had them break. So is $14.99 a lot for a topwater lure? Depending who you ask, I think most would say yes, but in my opinion, it's worth it because you have a whole lot of fish catches coming on this thing for many, many years. So by this point in the video, you have seen all the similarities, the differences, the facts, the pros, cons of each one of these. Which one is right for you? I think for most anglers, the winner is going to be the Plopper Style bait, and let me tell you why. Most anglers, regardless of where they are bass fishing, from the bank or from the boat, are fishing around relatively open water. So it's not usually a whole lot of heavy cover, not a bunch of lay down logs or stumps. And if you can, I say this all the time, all year round, in a ton of different instructional videos, if you can get away with throwing a treble hooked lure, whether it is a swim bait with a treble hook on the bottom like a mag draft, or a crankbait over a swim bait, do that, because your hookup ratio will be better on a treble hooked bait. You got 6 of these dang hooks. This one, you've got 1, and if you got a treble hook, maybe 2. And another reason why the plopper wins over the buzzbait for most anglers is because you can work it a little bit slower. Because it floats, the rate that you have to retrieve that bait in order to get the tail plopping and making that noise is a little bit slower than a buzzbait. Buzzbait sinks, you gotta keep it moving. You can stop and go this bait. You can even kind of like bloop, bloop, bloop like a popper would. I've caught fish doing that, especially really finicky topwater bass that maybe have seen a ton of ploppers going the same speed, the same direction. You change it up a little bit, you can catch the fish that people have missed. On a buzzbait, you don't really have a choice. It's either speed 7 or speed 11. But, and this is a huge but, if you have any kind of really windy conditions and your water is anything but crystal clear, a buzzbait is going to be the bait of choice. In those conditions, the fish will be able to find your buzzbait a lot easier than they would a topwater plopper, and we're gonna show you tons of fish catches to prove that here in a second. The buzzbait just makes more noise, throws more water, and has an easier time at getting that blade turning in waves and wind than the plopper does. So if you all have enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. Let's jump on the water and catch some fish. Gosh, dang, man. That's a nice one. That's a nice one. Oh, yep, you feel the wind now. You hear the wind now. Oh my gosh. That's a big one, I think. Yeah, that's a big one. Oosh. Oosh, get up in here. Yes, sir. Yes, stinking sir. Look at that buzzbait. Gone. Love to see it, boys and girls. Beautiful fish right there. 3.5, 4 pounder. Go back to where you live. There we go. Got him that time. You ain't getting away this time, buddy. Yes, sir. One thing y'all have missed, because I've cut most of them out, is that I've had actually quite a few misses on the buzzbait, which if I wasn't so committed to making a buzzbait video, I would just pick up a spinnerbait. Gosh. Holy cow. Because some of these fish have just totally missed the bait altogether. Like they swirl like 6 inches away from it, so it's not like throwing the patroller would have caught me those fish. So when you get fish that are missing, don't be so stuck on topwater, even though I am today. Gosh, that was awesome. That was awesome. Jeez. Oh man, what a stinking bite. What an aggressive fish, wow. Now on this side, as you can tell, it's significantly less windy because now the wind is blowing on the bank. So if I wanted to switch to the patroller, I could. I don't have it with me. I left it in the truck. So we're just gonna fish this calm area with the buzzbait, which you can do until we get back to a windy stretch that I see just up ahead. There's one. Let's go. Let's go, bring him in. Yes, sir. Man, you are a skinny fish. Woohoo, skinny guy. He needs to go to the gym, but that so far is 2 bites on the calm side, the very small calm side we have today, and both fish have got it in their mouths, which just goes to show that when you have a lot of wind, it can really make those fish have trouble finding your lure. There's one. Yes, sir. Got him. Bring it up. Beautiful. Trailer hook got that one. Grateful for it. If you're in open water, I don't know why you don't throw a trailer hook. That don't make no sense to me. Got him. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on, bring it over, bring it over, bring it over. Yes, sir. Bring it in. Oh, it's gotten so windy. And as you can tell by this one right here, trailer hook was necessary because swiped at it, basically missed it, and the trailer hook got him in the bottom of the mouth. Wouldn't have caught that fish without it. It is so windy. Oh my gosh. Long cast, let the wind carry it, perfect. Gosh, dang it. Holy cow. That's a big one, that's a big one, that's a big one. That is a big fish. Nope, nope, don't you jump, don't you jump. He ate it like right as it started buzzing. Hello, big girl. Okay, not a 6. You looked way bigger when you jumped out there. Still a good one, yeah. That right there, Mr. 4-pounder. That's a healthier fish, we like that. Got him on both hooks, he was hooked great. Yes, 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 yes. There's another one. Ate it as I was looking away. They are stacked in this corner. Oh yeah, that makes sense though, wind's blowing into this corner. Gosh, bring it in. Beautiful. Oh, barely hooked though. That right there is a chunky one. We like to see that though. See ya. Another one. Oh yes, yes sir. Let's stinking go. You know what, not as huge, but that one is how you want to see them eat it. Boys and girls at the houses, wherever you're watching, the coffee shop, that right there is what you want to see. Buzzbait, big fish. Well, I get to this side of the pond here, which I knew was going to be the windiest, and topwater time is running out, as in like the sun's getting too high, and it's just too windy. It's having no trouble buzzing in the wind, it's just fish are having trouble finding this thing. I know they're here. This is just weather for a crankbait, spinnerbait, vibrating jig, not a buzzbait. Hold on to your hats. I think buzzbait time is over.